Jason, welcome. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well, I think we'll watch the video and move on from there.
The environment where we work should be a place that makes our comfort, security, health, and productivity the highest priority. The technologies needed to accomplish these results continue to grow in quantity and complexity at an increasing pace. In order for these systems to achieve an optimal workplace environment, they must be integrated with each other for seamless and efficient functionality. To reach these objectives, a master systems integrator is engaged to utilize an elite resource pool of engineers, technicians, software programmers, project managers, and cybersecurity professionals. A successful master systems integrator must be a collaboration partner and an exceptional communicator. The best integrators can respond and adapt at the speed of client requirements, customize the solution freely, and be agnostic to any and all hardware and software providers. Integrated Building Solutions has worked all over the globe, integrated over 24 million square feet of real estate, and have kept our clients loyal by exceeding their expectations for over 22 years, and believing what we do is to make the lives of our clients better.
Thank you for the introduction, Sarah and Joe. I want to first off express my gratitude for having a chance to present here today. So we've certainly seen the large majority of options for COVID-19 and return to the office strategies and technologies presented here today, as well as a lot of similar themes. What I would like to do is back up a bit and imagine the difficult task of evaluation and prioritization necessary from an efficacy standpoint and from an investment perspective. We find that mitigation measures that require moderate to major investments can be grouped into two categories that we find helpful from an evaluation starting point. One group deals directly with the mitigation of microbial transmission like UV, touchless, sanitization, and so on. The other group deals with improving conditions of the office and existing environments that affect the overall health of the occupants in a more holistic way, which is a word we've heard many times here today. Examples of this are ventilation, air quality monitoring, anti-crowding or occupant tracking, flexible work arrangements, and comfort factors like temperature and humidity. We do not take a position against or are dismissive about antimicrobial methods at all, but we have found that from an investment perspective, the holistic treatment of the workplace that increases the health and well-being of the occupants pays dividends far beyond an approach that may struggle to find ROI outside of a pandemic condition. These health and wellness principles are a part of the healthy buildings ideology that we've heard from, again, many times today, that is dramatically gaining momentum. The healthy buildings movement has been a pursuit for me and my company long before the pandemic. And healthy buildings is a relatively new field as scientific fields of study go, but there are certainly some early conclusions that we can count on for results. There have been many recent studies under laboratory conditions and in the real world that have shown a significant impact of the indoor environment on people's productivity. Add to that the reduction of sick time and reduced healthcare costs, and the strategic gains of a healthy building are compelling. One of the more publicized studies was the COGFX or COGFX Harvard double-blind study that showed remarkable mental performance increases, as you can see here, and I believe has already been referenced. But even the results from studies with the most conservative outcomes show an increase in cognitive function from 2% to 10% with increased ventilation beyond ASHRAE minimums. In fact, even the smallest 2% increase in productivity for the majority of a workforce would financially outperform the vast majority of energy saving investments with a bottom line increase of up to 9%. We feel that what will really drive people back to the office is making the most productive place they can work. Many new standardization and certification organizations have risen in response, including Well, Fitwell, and Reset, that have also been mentioned here today, that provide guidance and structure. From an even wider perspective, many studies and real-life cases have shown that environment can positively or negatively impact our immune systems. In the book Healing Spaces by Dr. Esther Sternberg and the work she's done at the University of Arizona's Institute on Place, Wellbeing, and Performance, together with the U.S. General Services Administration, shows that negative emotions and stress, including stresses from built and work environments, can hinder our ability to fight off infections and diseases. Conversely, positive emotions, including those related to the built environment, can counter those negative effects of stress and help boost resilience to infection. Factors like better air, controlled lighting, reduced crowding, flexible workspaces, and comfortable offices are all stress reducers, microbial mitigators, and if used together in a synchronized and strategic fashion, productivity increasers. These technologies implemented in siloed isolation. Can you move me one slide back, please, Sarah? For some reason, it took me a click back. Will have positive effects. Siloed isolation will have positive effects, but without integration and intelligence implemented to pursue the unified end objectives, they will not have nearly the same success and can very frequently cause problems that counteract the benefits they are trying to produce. If ventilation is increased without integration, then energy costs rise substantially, working against productivity improvements to the bottom line. If the flexible workspace system isn't coordinated with lights or HVAC, the space will not be prepared, or even worse, someone might already be working there. Ventilation can be controlled based on the actual number of people in a room, but without integration to people counting sensor systems, this strategy becomes impossible, as well as other use cases like space utilization tracking, energy normalization by number of occupants, and others. The additional advantage to integration is the ability to monitor and track several strategic efforts to administer and validate performance. As an example, let's take a typical floor screen. The software monitors zones as determined by building managers and physical layout. When a zone goes out of normal for falling below ventilation air changes per hour or an air quality metric such as PM 2.5, VOC, CO2, that zone changes color on the floor layout, and the wellness index for that zone pops up to provide more detail in real time. Oh, it took me one more bit forward again. Please move me back one more. Or the lighting system occupancy sensors can be used to track the occupant utilization, which can be displayed over a floor plan, and time periods can be played back to observe scheduling and pattern impacts. All of this information can be programmed to provide visual alarms as well as send out notices. The vision of all these systems working together to create a smoothly operating, harmonious, and productive workplace is what we work for as master systems integrators and technology advisors. There are nearly an unlimited number of hurdles and obstacles that can develop while pursuing these goals, so finding a partner who understands the business objectives and has the technological expertise and the experience to avoid potential problems is the linchpin to a successful project implementing health and wellness technologies and strategies. Joe, back to you.
Great, Jason, thank you. One question, and again, please, anyone in the audience, feel free to ask your questions in the chat window. One thing I was thinking through is just from a productivity point of view, how do you measure and how invasive is it? I recall there was an article I put in my last newsletter. I publish a newsletter every month, and it was about Microsoft, and they were in a little bit of hot water because apparently they were giving tools to their enterprise clients to monitor use of different Microsoft applications, and it was viewed as a little too invasive. The point I made was, well, if everyone's at home and remote, you need some way of kind of monitoring what people are working on, and also, I think more fairly, companies are trying to find what's the balance between too invasive and not invasive enough. And I don't know that we found that balance, but from your point of view, I'd love to just understand what's kind of state of the practice measuring productivity without being too invasive.
Absolutely. That's a common question. And it comes from an engineering mindset perspective, trying to measure productivity, right? Like we want to categorically isolate the numerics of productivity. But for enabling the performance of people as a group, it's more about measuring the optimal environment you're providing. If you think of the environmental conditions as like a performance ceiling, right? From an aggregate perspective, it has a limiting factor. So that you can see you're measuring the maximum performance potential and validating that the environment is not limiting productivity. So I think it's more about thinking that we've always been handicapping ourselves through limiting the maximum ventilation that we should have been having all this time for maximum productivity. So it's about removing that handicap and increasing the productivity through that ventilation for improvements. So it's not about, you don't have to dig into people's data. You don't have to be invasive. Yeah. It's more about enabling and removing the ceilings so people can reach their most productive periods. And so as a building owner or landlord, you can say, hey, we're providing the most productive for your performers to achieve their best.
Got it. That's great. I saw an interesting report, and I've only kind of started digging into it, that was looking at salespeople and how much revenue they were able to generate as their metric around productivity. And it was looking at if salespeople have lunch together, two of them pair up and have lunch together, or if you just are given kind of additional bonuses to close more business. I think that those were the kind of the two treatments to speak of as, and they were able to see that the meetings between two individuals actually generated more revenue across a lot of salespeople, which is interesting because that's not invasive at all. I mean, if you're a salesperson, your revenue generation is being tracked, and no one's, you're compensated on that, so no one's offended by that. So it's interesting. I think there's a lot good insights, and it seems like there's a lot to kind of test out and learn more about.